name is Alessia. I work as interactive engineer here at Snap. Welcome to another day of LensFest. I hope you're having a great time with all the great talks that we prepared to you. And here I am with another talk. I'm going to cover two of our newer templates that both cover some new amazing technologies, one for new Apple devices and another one for Android devices. On our website, let's go to the templates tab here. And here you can see all of the templates that you can download, play with to create your own lenses. For this tutorial, let's download depth-enabled template and LiDAR-enabled templates. That's two of those that I'm going to cover. Here on depth-enabled templates, you can see, this one, depth toybox template. It's downloading here. So go ahead and download this one. I've already did this for myself, so I'm just gonna go ahead and open up it in Lens Studio. Good, so now when we have our template loaded, let's just have a quick review what is depth toybox template and how it works. So basically it utilizes ARCore technology from Android devices that allows you to receive depth information from the world around you. What it exactly means is that it kind of knows distance between your phone and objects around you, so we can actually estimate all of the surfaces that you have and the orientation. For example, walls, ceiling, maybe like you have some tables, chairs or something around you, and you can actually utilize and use it in a lens, which I think is pretty cool because it gives you way more interactivity. So yeah, let's see what we have here. We have a special preview for the depth-enabled templates, depth 01, depth 02, depth 03. Basically, it's just a preview that was shooted with this depth info that we need. So Studio will actually know that there is like a walls around this backyard and that there is a floor, and let's see how it works. So there is just like an UI with 4 different objects that you can choose in your lens. Let's choose a tree one, for example, and then let's just click and drag our object around. So you can see it kind of adapts to the orientation and angle of the surfaces around you. So you can place objects somewhere here or somewhere here. Let's see if it even knows that we have a horizontal table here. Also cool. Let's try place something on a bench here. Yeah, almost got it. So great, we see how it works now and what we can do with it, how we can play. Obviously, first thing that comes to mind is let's replace these assets with our own and see how the setup of this template works. So I'll go ahead and remove all of those. Oh, this is really nice effect. I like it. Okay, so let's pick, for example, tree object and see what's underneath here. We have a script controller that basically does what it says. It sticks to surfaces. And we have occlusion control that also uses depth texture to check for objects that may be in the way of your object rendering. And then underneath we have effects control for our dragging of an object. Then we have objects itself, ground to make some grid underneath it, tree, and our target, which you may have seen here. Yeah, it just basically tells you where you're gonna place this object. Okay, so let's replace this tree with our own asset. I've already have something in mind. It's a super popular red panda from our other templates that you may have seen. Just hit import here and let's drag it underneath the movement anchor. I'm gonna disable tree And now let's hook everything to our scripts. Yeah, so I'm just replacing tree object with our panda object now. Yeah, here's our main mesh for the panda. Same here. I'm also gonna scale it down a little bit. It's gonna be a huge panda. Okay, let's see if it's working. Yeah, here it is. Here's our panda. It's a little bit offsetted from the center. So let's fix its positioning. Let's remove this one, hit refresh, and try one more time. Yeah, now it's perfectly centered. It's kind of rotated away from us, so we can also fix it. Let's try. Let's see. Which one we should rotate? Let's try this one. Refresh again. Yeah, now it looks a little bit better. It kind of rotates on its own, so it's hard to adjust. But yeah, in those simple steps, we replaced provided assets in template with our own. So basically, you just need some mesh visual and to reconnect it in couple scripts. Pretty easy. We can also go ahead and try to replace those UI icons for you to use, since we don't have a tree right now, we have a panda. Well, obviously we need a panda icon. So let's see where this UI is set up. It's an orthographic camera, and yeah, we have a playset controller here, which is basically controls behavior of these buttons and animations. And here we have 4 textures, and we can replace button green with our own icon. Let's see if I have something here. Yeah, I do. Here it is. We already have our icon here, and it's gonna scale on its own. Yep, everything still works. Okay, so that's for the first part of my live demo. We played with depth and ARCore that is enabled on Android devices. You can go ahead, download and play it and create lenses on your own. I hope you come up with something fun, and yeah, just have fun with it. It looks cool. It looks even better in real life than in Lens Studio. And for the next part, we're gonna look at our world mesh template, which you may also already have seen. So for the second part of our demo, let's play with world mesh template. It's located on the same web page, Templates World. It's called LiDAR enabled template. And what this one does, it utilizes the super cool feature that new Apple devices have, new iPhone. It basically tells you not only the orientation of surfaces around you, but it also classifies them. So, for example, it tells you that your table is a table, chair is a chair. It also classifies walls, ceiling, windows, anything, doors also, and floors. Yeah, let's not forget about floor. And yeah, you can utilize it in your lens to create more interactive lenses and to get more information about the environment, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Yeah, so let's go ahead and download this template on a web page here. I already did it, so I will go ahead and open it up in my Lens Studio. Here it is. We also have a special preview for this one. It is located here and it's called Interactive Environment. It's basically a render of a number of rooms that you can actually walk around and see how template is working. It's already generating objects around. So here you have forest on a table and boats on a floor, because Lens knows that we should spawn these objects here and other type of objects is on a floor. So that's one of the way to use this technology, is to pick what do you want to appear on different surfaces. So let's go ahead and do the same stuff that we do to Depth's Toybox template, and let's replace these assets with one of our own. So let's see, we have an object presets here that have all of our objects that are going to be spawned and copied and multiplied around environment. Let's add our own here. I'm gonna go ahead and import object. Let's try an elephant. I'm just gonna hit import. Let's disable other spawners for a second. Cool. And let's try to adapt this one to our elephant. So instead of desert, I'm gonna pick our elephant render mesh. Maybe I'll change it to table, placement still horizontal surface, ignore position, enable. And now to use your model with this template, you should adapt the material that you have here. So it's pretty simple. We already have a material that you can use in template, but you will have to duplicate it. Just fill all the missing textures in here, and let's assign this material to that's how it was called. Looks like it's already working, and we have a bunch of dancing elephants on our tables. Which looks fun. They all synchronized because this material just duplicates all of them and starts playing animation at the same time. So it's best to use with like a static objects, or you can see how boats and water works here. They have animation baked into the material itself. But for our case, this one seems to work. It's pretty easy to set up. Let's rename it back to spawn elephant. And we can play around, change table to seats and see, yeah, now we have elephant on the chairs. We can even bring it up to the ceiling and see if it works. Oh yeah, here they are. Just yeah, this looks fun. You can also notice here that they're being occluded by the mesh here. That's all because World Mesh doesn't only provide us with surface orientation, surface classification, but also we have like a full mesh built from your environment around you, and you can use it as an occluder, which is already set up here. So all of the stuff that you place in scene, it's been already occluded by stuff in your room, which is pretty cool, and it looks even cooler on your device again than in studio. I hope you had fun. I hope you find out something new, and let's go ahead and take a look at another use of depth technology in our Lens Studio. My colleague Vivian will walk you through this. Thank you, and I hope you're gonna have a great rest of your day.
Hi everyone, my name is Vivian. I'm a technical artist. Today I'm going to show you guys how to use depth data to create interesting lenses in Lens Studio. So as Alicia already showed you guys earlier, let's go back to the templates. We go back to the depth enable templates and we scroll down. You'll see the toy box template she showed you guys earlier. And if you go down even more, you will see a depth material template. And you can also download this template here. This is what I'm going to show you guys today. As nowadays more and more devices have these depth features, at Snap we are always innovating and we like to unlock and play with new stuff such as depth. So let's take a look at it together. So this will be what you guys have when you download the template. You might notice my working setup looks a little bit different than Alicia's because I purposely set it up this way. You can actually drag and drop and decide what you want to put each windows. I prefer to work this way because I work mainly in material editor. If you don't have dual screen and you love to work in shaders, I recommend you guys to try it out. You will have like good amount of space to work with and you have everything around you. So if you take a look at this template, you have like 3 examples. One is sweep, and we have depth of field, and we also have edge detection. Let's create something from scratch and visualize what depth texture looks like. If you go to object, create a new object, add component. Let's create a pose effect onto our resource. Let's drop in a grab empty. Now we'll assign it. Here, hit tab. Let's create a texture 2D parameter. Connect it. Give it a name. Call it depth. Let's find our depth texture. Now, what you're seeing here is actually depth information from the video feed. If you can imagine, it's basically your device, your phone, what your phone sees from its video field. Due to the depth being in the physical centimeter units, which is probably like a little bit less than 1 inch. So in most cases, when you're filming something or you're seeing something, unless you're very, very close, most of the time the value will be over 1. So that's what you're seeing here. Right in this template, you can also see 3 new videos we have. These 3 videos are recorded with depth informations. So if you're working with depth templates or you're creating your new lenses, these are very useful by knowing what the depth information actually provide us, so we can actually alter a little bit and see what we get. Let's put in a multiply. Hit shift and you can snap it. Change it to X. Let's put in 0.001. I prefer to click here and hide all the buttons so I will see what I'm working on. So what you will see is highly depends on the input source. I highly recommend you guys, if you are working on depth related lenses, always push it to your phone to actually try it in the real world and try it on your phone. So this is 0.003. It's not a magic number. It's just for the purpose of our demo today. So now we're seeing something. If you don't remember how it looks like, it was like a picnic table. Now you can see the information. We can actually tweak it by adding a swizzle. By using the swizzle node, you will see the default is giving you XYZW. You can actually put in RGBA. It's the same thing. And for this case, we only want the depth information. So we are using red channel, red channel, red channel, and alpha we can put in 1. There you go. We get a black and white situation. If we want to tweak it, you can try it out our subrect. Let's use brightness and contrast. So you can tweak it this way. Or if you like to create yourself, we can put in a power node with a multiply. change the number here. Let's try to put it 3 and give it like 20. Now, let's imagine how we can use this information to create. We can actually use this to occlude an object and put a 3D object behind the picnic table. I already have this panda pre-imported. This does not come with a template, but you guys can use whatever object you want. So let's create a PBR for this panda. And create a texture and assign it. We want it to be normal. And right here, we want to expand it and use string coordinates. Now let's take a look at this first. This will be our alpha channel. So if we use this as a occluder, we can actually hide the panda behind the picnic table. Let's take a look. So this power by 3 and multiply by 20 is not a perfect number. I believe you guys can make it prettier, but we're just gonna stop here and show you guys something else. The new example, let's hide this panda and turn on our pose effect once again. If you guys don't already know, we actually update our graph, our Gaussian blur. So let's drop in the Gaussian blur and look at it together. Connect it. So you can see we have like 4 different ports texture. Very obvious you're gonna drop in a texture. This will be, let's call it screen. We can create a screen texture. Assign it. Nothing's happening. And we want a text coordinates. We can borrow this guy, use it here. Oh, something's happening. But what is this pixel size? You can actually click here, expose. Now you have your pixel size. Connect. Let's make the number bigger to see what's happening. It actually looks horrible because we haven't finished yet. Let's go to our texture. What you want to do is click on this mid-maps, and then we have to fix the edge here. Go to clamp to edge and clamp again. Now you have it. So as you can imagine, we already have this depth information. You can use this depth information very easily to create depth of field. So let's put this, we can alter the number a little bit and make it more reasonable. Let's put it down. And we can connect to the blur factor. Oops. There, now it's your very easy setup for depth of field effect. If you're interested to see how you can make this more controllable and more fun, download this template, of course, and you can see like a bigger setup here, how we can do it that way. And the next example I'm going to show you guys is how we can create this sweeping effect. Let's get rid of this Gaussian blur. And come back. Let's look at this together. Once again, we want to make the value more workable. We make it down to 2 so we can see the whole gradient from the very front to the back. If we want like a sweeping motion, we will like to create a divide, and we can divide it without time. Now you can already see it like an explosion effect. Let's turn off this normal, make it disable. But it will only happen once when you start up the lens. Of course, if that's what you're going for, you can just go with this. But if we want it to be constantly looping and scanning, we can use a frac node. So we'll start looping. And we can also put down a float parameter, connect to our time, call it speed, and make it user-friendly. We expose min and max. You'll realize after you expose these two, you will have like a bar that you can use. Now, if we want to make it as a thin line, what we can do is we want something in between two numbers. So let's put in is less, and we want another one is greater. Can actually make it only red channel, so we're working on 1. We can make the number, we can find a number between 1 and somewhere between, let's try 0.8. We want these two to be true, so let's put on end. Let's see what we get. Oh, I actually did not put in 0.8. This should be 1. All right. Here we go. We have a scanning motion happening. So as earlier we create this parameter, we can just borrow it, like copy and paste, and we call it thickness and expose like min and max. Now we have a slider here. And now you notice, oh, it's working, but it's kind of weird because when you store it to like bigger number, it actually gets thinner. You always want everything to be user-friendly, so let's create a 1 minus. Now, fixed. So you can see when we are going to the smaller number, it will actually go thinner and thinner. Now we have our scanning working. We can combine it with our original background. Let's use our screen texture. We can hide this now. Let's see. This will be our original texture, looks like, our video feed. And then we could use a blend node, blend it with some sci-fi color, make it like blue. Let's take a look. We could use a mix node. So what we're doing here is we mix the original color with this bluish color with the ratio of the scanning thing we made earlier. Let's take a look. Now here you go. We have our scanning happening. I have another trick for you guys. If you prefer to use conditional, it actually works pretty similar with the mix node. You can just connect your original and the color. The bool will be your alpha. And let's take a look. It's exactly the same. Perfect. So as you can see, creating shader in Material Editor makes it very easy and very fast. If you would like to share with us what you create, you can come to our website again, go to Learn, and if you go down to Form, there's Share Your Creations. I'm excited to see what you guys make, and thanks for tuning in and happy creating.
Hello everyone, my name is Elter. I'm part of the product experience team at SnapLab, and SnapLab is Snap's hardware division. We are mostly responsible from our hardware product, which is our smart sunglasses line called Spectacles. And about a year ago, we launched our most recent product called Spectacles 3. And it has two cameras that lets you not only record the world, but record it from two different perspectives, which then lets you understand the depth and geometry of this environment and lets you put amazing lenses on it. And now Shin will show you how to build lenses for Spectacles 3.
So hi, I'm Shin from Snap Labs. I'm also part of the product experience group as a prototyper. And today I'll be showing you how to create your own projection effect as a lens that you can use for your Spectacles 3 content. So the first thing that we want to do is we're gonna derive a lot of our projects with past templates. So let's start off with the underwater template, depth template that is available in our Lens Studio. So all you have to do is go to this link where it contains the underwater depth template and download it. Make sure you unzip it and you should be able to see a folder with the underwater depth template. And let's open that up. Click update. And you'll see all these beautiful caustic effect that kind of gets overlaid to the content using the depth information. And the good thing about Spectacles 3 and just depth in general with Lens Studio is that even though this was specifically created for the phone, since Spectacles 3 also contains depth and can generate a depth map, we could also apply the same principle to the Spectacles 3 content. So I'm gonna save out this project out into a bundle so that we could easily export it out into another new project. So you could do that by right-clicking on the Objects panel, create new scene object, and then let's rename that into something more human readable, like underwater depth template. And I'm just gonna drag and drop everything that is within this project into the scene object. And then what you can do now is you could right-click on the underwater depth template scene object, and you'll see this export object button. Press that. And basically what this does is it understands all the references that the scene objects contain and properly bundles it up so that next time you want to import it into another project, let's say, you'll get all that necessary information. So I'm gonna save it into this Spectacles 3 lens folder. And then you should see an underwater depth template.lso file that got exported from this. So that's all we need for this particular project. So I'm gonna combine this with our Spectacles depth template as well. So let's start this by creating a new project. So we could go to Files, New Project from Template, and then select Spectacles, and then Spectacles Path. Since we don't need this project anymore, we don't need to save it. So let's drag this underwater depth template into the Objects panel. And then Lens Studio will do its magic to import in all the content, and you'll kind of see that it bundled it up the way that you exported it. So let's delete some unnecessary components that came with Lens Studio or came with the underwater depth template. And for example, this device tracking, our Spectacles path template already contains this. So we're going to remove it. As well as the lighting, we already have like a lighting set up, so we don't need to have multiple lighting sources here. As well as this post-processing camera, which is kind of responsible for giving that like blue hue to this experience. So we're going to create our own unique experience, so we're just going to remove this. So we want to make sure that we're only working with the projection effect for now. So let's remove any components that are a little bit distracting here, and that's specifically like the path components. So like these little dogs, fox, and owl, cat things, we'll temporarily remove them, and then when we're ready to work with them again, we'll re-enable them back. So we're going to disable them. And then you should see like this caustic look in your preview panel to your right. So to make our project a little bit more human readable, we're gonna change this caustic camera since the naming convention doesn't really make sense here. So we're just gonna name that into projection camera. And also this far clip, which is responsible for rendering like the distance, how far the camera could render. We're gonna increase that value a little bit because 1,000 seems a little bit too small. So let's put 10,000 instead. And we're gonna also add in a new layer. And this layer will be responsible for rendering any kind of projection effect. So we're gonna rename this layer that we just created into projection layer. So next, we want to rename the caustic sphere output, this render target, into a more human readable one as well. So let's look that up in the caustic sphere output and rename it into projection output. And we're going to make sure that we're using the screen's resolution and also enabling MSAA so that things look a little bit more crisp, particularly for our projection effects. So now we want to make sure that whatever the projection camera sees is also following along with the main camera. So what we want to do is make sure we select the projection camera and the caustic sphere. You could quickly do this by selecting the projection camera and pressing Shift and then clicking on the caustic sphere and dragging that to the camera. And then let's make sure that this caustic sphere, which is responsible for doing the rendering of any projection effect, be set to the projection layer. And then next, we want to create a new screen image. And we're going to rename that into projection image. And make sure the stretch mode is actually set to stretch so that it fills that entire screen resolution. And then what we can do now is this material is going to contain the displacement material, which is kind of responsible for projecting the caustic effect into the world. But in our case, it's going to be just normal projection texture that we'll be setting later on. We're gonna set it to the depth displacement. and then make sure the blend mode is set to normal so that it's not too washed out. Next, we want to kind of change the rendering order for some of these camera targets so that we're kind of isolating the different layers of it so that we could project to the world properly. So we want to make sure that the projection camera goes first, and then the orthographic camera goes next, and then the normal camera, which is our main camera, as the last. So now you can kind of see like there is this caustic look to the world, but having it a little bit static is boring. So let's add a little twist to it by adding a rotational behavior to it. So what we can do is under camera, create a new scene object, and then let's rename that into rotate movement, and place the caustic sphere, which is responsible for rendering out this caustic look, as a child of that rotate movement. And then what we can do now is go to resources and then create a new script. We'll also name that into rotate movement. I made this script, I pre-made this script, so I have it handy and ready. So I'm gonna copy and paste this script into this JavaScript component, save it, and make sure that the rotate movement will contain that script. We want to make sure that in this camera variable, we put our main camera in. And we want to also enable this rotation so that we get that rotation behavior. And now you could kind of notice that there's a subtle movement going on to our world as you're traversing through it. And then lastly, since we disabled the spectacles path template, let's like re-enable some of those again as well. And make sure we refresh, and we'll see our cool little animals and path living in this world. Cool. So the fun part comes in where we could start customizing this so that it's unique to your own lens. So I have some handy objects that I found and created with the help of Ilter. So maybe instead of having this little default spectacles path, we could have like a Christmas effect because we're kind of nearing into Christmas. So what I want to do is drag this snowman LSO file that I was able to procure beforehand, and then place it into the objects panel. And if we go to our scene view, you'll see this little cute snowman guy. And let's delete some of these, or let's delete all of these little animal creatures so that we could have our own unique characters involved. So I'm gonna drag the character that I imported in to the place object path. And you'll notice that there's so many snowmans. Might be a little bit overkill here, so let's reduce the numbers here a little bit. Maybe we'll reduce it to 1. And maybe the snowman appears at the end of your path. So let's make sure that we enable the custom path, and make sure the start offset is to 0.99 so that it's guaranteed to show at the end. And you'll notice that like the snowman is also a little bit too high up. You could also reduce that into more realistic height. And we could change that by going into the place object path and making sure that we set the positions Y to -150. And it seems like it is a little bit more a realistic height. Let's also remove this move along and drop path, since I don't think it's useful in our case. The guy is looking a little bit small, so we could also make sure that we scale him up a little bit. So let's try 3. That looks pretty good. So next, this caustic sphere is definitely not a Christmas theme. So let's change that up to create some new particle movement, perhaps. So what we can do is make sure that under the rotate movement object, we select this plus symbol and add a particle to it. And then let's also disable this caustic sphere for now. And you'll see that this particle system is a little bit chaotic, so let's make sure that we edit this material. Probably want this to be a sphere spawn because we're kind of rotating this in a 360 view. And make sure that the spawn sphere is set to 10, 10, 10. So this is not looking like a what we want. It's a little bit too chaotic. So let's change the parameter a little bit on this particle system. So make sure that we have it spawning from as a sphere. Let's make this a little bit bigger so that it's engulfing like the entire world. So we could set this as 50 for the height, width, and the depth. And we also want to make sure that there's some noise to this. So let's enable some noise, as well as making sure that there's no like movement, because they should remain a little bit static. So disable the movement. And the size is a little bit small at the moment, so let's increase that to 4. And since this is kind of looking a little bit better, but these white particle is looking a little bit dull, so let's add our own twist to them. Let's add a little snowflake. So grabbing this snowflake PNG file, I'm going to drag it into our resource panel. And then in the particle emitter, let's change the particle texture into the snowflake. Now you can see the particles part of the world. Oh, and make sure that we have this particles as a projection layer so that it is actually being projected into the environment. It's rotating a little bit quick, so let's kind of lower this value. So let's change the rotational rate so that it's slowing down a little bit, because this is a little bit too fast. So we're going to try 0.25 and 0.25 here. Let's lower that down a little bit further to 0.1 to 0.1. That's looking better. Cool. We could still add a little bit more to it. And maybe I wanted to add a more frosty look. So what we can do here now is create a color correction. And let's add a frost color correction to this. Let's put this all the way down to the orthographic camera so it's applied everywhere. And now we have like this little frosty look, as well as having a projection and also having this snowman ready to throw its snowball at us. And if we actually look at the snowman, he might have his animation set to being able to throw the snowman, and it looks like he does. So let's change this snowman from having this idle animation by changing the weight of this idle animation to 0 and activating the weight of the attack animation to have the weight of 1. And now the snowman will start throwing snowballs at you. A very mischievous snowman that will get cold for this Christmas. Cool, I think I'm ready to test this on my device. So let's actually connect our account to Lens Studio. So what you can do is select this preview in Snapchat and it'll reveal a snap code. And what you can do is press and hold with your press and hold on the screen when you're on the Snapchat app. And it should prompt you to pair with Lens Studio. I'm going to click pair. And once it's paired, you'll see that this button now changes from preview on Snapchat to send lenses to the device. So I'm going to send my lens to the device. And let's go take some content and see how we can apply the effects.
Hello and welcome. As we bring another day of LensFest celebrations to a close, I'm here with two incredible teams that recently worked together to bring a special story to life through spectacles. My name is Sarah, and I'm a creative lead for Spectacles Marketing. It's been such a pleasure to work with directors Reed and Rader and 3D design studio Velvet Spectrum on this project. And today we're here to talk about how they used AR to reimagine their world through a film shot entirely on spectacles. But first, please enjoy Reed and Rader's newest film, Monsters of Saturn.
Enceladus, do you want to go on an adventure? You know how you make a bunch of monsters?
That's great, buddy.
And they hide in the woods and at the beach and on the roof and in the playground? You want to find them?
Ready, go!
It's okay, don't be scared.
Where do you think the monsters are?
Hi and welcome, Matthew, Morgan, and Luke. It was an absolute joy to work with you all on this project. I've been really blown away by all the amazing collaboration and creativity from this crew, and it's just been so fun watching you guys create magic together. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Our first question today is for Matthew. So you and Pamela have been working together for a really long time, and you're definitely no strangers to utilizing new technologies or breathing new life into more familiar digital mediums. Could you tell us about your process a little bit of exploring new technologies like spectacles and how you bring them into your work?
Yeah, of course. We've always been really excited about the latest and greatest technologies, starting out with photography and moving on to video, getting into animated GIFs when nobody had video on the internet, moving on to gaming engines in 3D and figuring out how to incorporate them into our work. For us, this journey has always been about storytelling and figuring out which tools allow us to bring our wacky worlds and crazy characters to life. Fast forward to today with newer technologies like augmented reality and virtual reality. They allow us to bring our creatures into the real world and actually see them exist next to us. With spectacles, we were able to do that in a very easy way that just made sense.
So Luke and Morgan, you two worked on several AR projects with spectacles. How does AR inspire you in ways that other mediums can't? And how is AR different when it's built for hardware like spectacles, especially with a depth map?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more to consider when you're thinking about AR now, because I tend to look at 3D design as I'm the world creator and I dictate my environment and where the light's coming from and my objects in my scene. Whereas I have to think about AR in terms of the end user's point of view rather than my own. So I think that's one thing that I've had to really, come to grips with and understand a lot better, is how this would be utilized at the end product with users. So I feel like it's just a lot of creating with people in mind. And yeah, it's just, it's a lot of, back and forth and testing and retesting that's, especially having the tools like the specs to ourselves, we can create our own worlds outside and see how they interact, and then assume that other people are going to be able to use it the same way. But
Yeah, we've talked a lot about how it's sort of like a choose your own adventure comic in a way, to where like, you know, we're building this thing on our side and we have our vision for it, but with AR, like within spectacles, you know that everyone's going to appropriate it differently and everyone has their own like adventure to take and include this lens into. So like that's always the most exciting part for me, is like seeing how other people use it, and then, you know, seeing how Reed and Radar were able to like fit it into different parts of the movie. And
yeah, and I mean, especially thinking in a larger format for a movie where lenses were very, you know, singular, you know, as a facial lens or thing, and now we're starting to think about the world as a lens, and you know, how to house a lens, and there's so much more we can do to that and build worlds out of nothing. And it's you know, a lot of the hard work that was always done in studios was compositing, and it's kind of really just gotten rid of that. It's, you know, with the occlusion abilities of spectacles, you can really actually just turn your environment into a studio set. It takes a lot of that guesswork out of it and a lot of playtime, and you can make things as big as you want, and giant monsters or little ones that interact, and you can really articulate how those characters are going to interact with the audience, and there's just a lot of consideration when it comes to that.
And back to Matthew, your film centers your 3-year-old daughter Enceladus, bringing her imaginary monster friends to life through AR. This was also your first time working with her on a project of this size. Were there any surprises? Did she teach you something new about creativity that you didn't know before?
There were lots of surprises. It was our first time formally working with her, and doing anything with 3-year-olds is quite challenging, let alone trying to wrangle them into some sort of formal photo shoot. Yeah, it was challenging for sure. At the same time, you know, it was really inspiring to see her kind of become part of the family business, and to see her react to seeing her monsters given life with 3D and augmented reality, something that was just on the page, becoming part of her video and part of her world. That was really, really cool. And the funniest thing she said when she first saw it was, "Mom, is this a new show? I wanna watch this show. Is this a new show?" So she thinks this is, you know, there's gonna be episodes of this now, so we gotta get on that.
And back to Morgan and Luke, you two did an incredible job at bringing Enceladus's imagination to life through AR. How did you go about building them from paper crafts to fully realized 3D monsters? And what kind of impact did a child's unrestrained creativity have on the way you approach the direction of this project?
yeah, I mean, it was so fun to like play off of a child's imagination in this, because I mean, I think even for us, like we like to start our morning with cartoons, and we try really hard to put energy into not thinking like an adult, and I feel like this project really let us kind of be free in that. And she did such cool, you know, paper mache sort of crafts and things that we were able to translate into scales and 3D and different textures. And
yeah, I think it was the perfect project because it was one thing years ago I really tried to like teach myself, was to think like a child, because I got so much inspiration from my young nephews who had such a creative brain that I was like, don't lose that, like tell me, like inspire me. So I think when it came to this, it was the perfect opportunity. And when it comes to realizing her creations, it was more about how would a child interpret what they saw in the real world, and trying to actually find ways of interpreting patterns, perhaps as how a kid would do it, but what would they have seen to actually interpret it the way they did it, and really just trying to like give her something that was really a nice, you know, almost trying to convince her that that's what she saw.
yeah.
And that's how she created it, and trying to like just see how far a kid's creativity can go, and showing them that there is a real, you know, just enjoyment from creating.
Yeah, because I think that was key, was to impress Enceladus with what we made rather than anyone else.
Yeah.
We wanted her to be happy with it, so I feel like by keeping focused on that, I think they really came out like really fun and true to her sense of imagination.
Yeah.
And Matthew, how has AR changed the way you think about the future of filmmaking?
You know, this is something that we've been thinking about for a long time, really since Pamela and I started with video. We've always been really concerned about, you know, that rectangular square of the video, whether it's 4:3 or 16:9 or on your phone. You know, what could we do to to break out of those confines, to break out of that window, and actually bring our worlds into space around us. How we could go run around and play in those worlds, how we could play with those creatures, those monsters, or whatever they were. And augmented reality has that promise. It's a young technology, and it's getting better day by day. And yeah, I think that's really one of the futures of filmmaking, is becoming fully immersed, photorealistically immersed in those worlds.
And on a similar note, a question for Luke and Morgan. How has AR changed the way you think about the future of design?
Yeah, I think personally it shows how long a creation can exist, whereas in a lot of the projects we do, it's kind of, you finish it and it's done, you send it off and it's all happy and somebody will see it somewhere. But the fact that we can create something that really has longevity and different interpretations constantly, that I don't think it ever really goes away if it's a good creation. And
yeah, I think that's a good point, and I'd probably take it back to the choose your own adventure analogy in that way, where it is like it can live on because there's endless ways to utilize that lens and put it into countless different settings and locations. And
yeah, I mean, we can all see that it's the future of design, really, that the more people like us get into it and really sort of try and lift its creativity and its potential, I think that more people are going to be into it and start to really respond to the way they can use it with their world and their environment.
Yeah, it's really fun to make something that is interactive in this way, rather than something that people just look at or maybe wear on a t-shirt, like something that you can really play with and manipulate to how you want it to look.
Yeah,
I think makes it really fun.
Because I like to think of computers really as our paintbrush of the digital age, that artists will take years to learn how to paint properly, whereas we're trying to understand programs that are so accessible for people of our generation, that you can come from an illustrator's background and learn these crazy programs and implement some amazing designs that you never really thought possible. So it's an exciting an exciting point for us to be included at the very beginning, really.
And a question for all of you. What was the most fun part of working on this film?
For us, it was the collaboration with Enceladus. From her picking out the monsters to giving feedback on what places we should go, really just kind of picking her brain as much as we could about what her world is. And then seeing her actually see it in the end, that was really rewarding. All the things in between were difficult, but rewarding at the end.
Yeah, I think it's just the excitement of seeing it out in the world, and the excitement that Enceladus would have to know that she was such a huge part of this.
Yeah, I think that being a designer, you can be very insular and very introverted a lot of the time, and you don't always get to see how your artwork is utilized or interacted with. So to be able to get actual feeling and emotion from people using the lenses and just sort of giving ourselves an excuse to be childish was a lot of fun. We really indulge a lot of our passions, which is like anime and cartoons, and it's all that sort of has paid off to create something that a 3-year-old could understand and appreciate. So it's it's just fun to bring to life a child's dream and imagination, really.
Yeah, I think we love to collaborate anyway. Like anytime we can collaborate, it's always more fun, and just to be able to bring to life something that a 3-year-old has put together has been really exciting. Yeah,
working with Read and Radar was great because we really felt like there was a similar wavelength we're all on in terms of where we see creativity and our love of color and just sort of absurdity, really, and trying to put that into some beautiful, bright, colorful story. So, I mean, that's what we always try to use, color as a communication tool in design. So it was great because Enceladus just brought so much color and life to those characters herself, and it just gave us a chance to show what an adult could do with a kid's imagination.
Yeah. And then if I had to pick a favorite lens that was the most fun, it was definitely the basketball monster.
Yeah, I like the Kraken.
Yeah.
He's just a flying worm.
Thanks for joining us today.